This week's Parsha, Parshas Vaschanon, in Pasuk Beis, Perek Daled, the Pasuk says, Lo sosifu ala davar asher anochi mitzav eschem v'lo sigru mimenu lishmor es mitzvot Hashem alekeichem asher anochi mitzav eschem. And you should not be moisif on any mitzvahs that Hashem asks you to keep, and you should not be megareya, and you should not lessen any mitzvahs. And then it says, Einechem haroyes, as Asa Hashem b'val pa'or. Ki kol ish asher holach achrei b'val pa'or, shmidu Hashem lekecha mikarbecha. And the Mefarshim explain that even if you think by serving Baal Pa'or to be mavazit, that's a mitzvah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not ask you to be moisif. Mainly, if you did, then his shmitcha Hashem lekecha mikarbecha. So it's very clear that even if you want to do something that you think is l'shem shemayim, but you're moisif on it when you're not supposed to, the consequences could be grave, like we see by Baal Pa'or. The Mefarshim explain that what's the vort that you're not allowed to be moisif, or you're not allowed to be migareya, you can't add or subtract from the mitzvahs, because Torah is Hashem tamimahi. Hashem's Torah is complete, and something that's complete, you don't need to be moisif on it. You don't need to take away from it. Anything like a carbon, when carbon's tamim, and it has no mum, a mela, that's a good carbon. But once it has a mum, so there's something missing from it, then it's puzzle. If it's a mum that passes. So something that takes away when something is complete is no good. And so when you're moisif on something that doesn't need haisafa, that's also hurting the mitzvah. Rashi says, what's the case of Baal Tosef? Pirish Rashi, can chomesh parshas b'tefillin, if you add an extra parsha to the tefillin, or you add an extra min to your lulav, or to tzitzis, you have another tzitzis, instead of 4, you add 5, v'che'elu v'che'elu. So Rashi says, lo yisasis v'alav chamesh toitafas b'tefillin, and lo ysigru, and Rashi puts them together. From Rashi, it's mashma is brought down the Panim Yafa, is that Rashi holds that it's all one halacha. So if you sit in the sukkah and you, for more than you're supposed to, more days, then even though you sat the right amount of days and then you were moisif, you're also not yoytze the mitzvah. As such as in the case if you had 2 little tzitzis on your beged or 2 little minim on your lulav, you're not yoytze. Rashi holds the same halacha applies when you're moisif. It's not just ha'isaf in the mitzvah, but if you add on where you're not supposed to, you're also not mekayim the actual mitzvah, besides being over Baal Tosef. If you look at the Ramban doesn't learn like the Ramban says, if you don't have enough tzitzis, or if you don't have enough of the minim on in the lulav, then taka you're not yoytze the mitzvah at all. But avad, if you're moisif on the mitzvah, like you had too many minim, or you ate too many days in the sukkah, even though you're over Baal Tosef, but it's not migareya from the etzem cheps of the mitzvah, and you're still yoytze. So there's a clear machloikis, the Ramban here, and Rashi. Rashi holds if you're moisif, it's just as much as if you took away, in both cases, not yoytze, and you're over v'lo sigru and Baal Tosef. The Ramban differentiates and says when it comes to not doing enough of the mitzvah, like not having enough tzitzis or enough the right minim and only 3 minim instead of 4 minim, then you're not yoytze. So too, if you add hey minim, or if you add more tzitzis, you're not yoytze. That's a distinctive machloikis between the Ramban and Rashi. The Goin also says a pshat over here. Later on, the Torah again brings up the din of lo yisifu, and it says it twice. So the Goin says, what's the pshat? Because the Torah is teaching me 2 things. Number 1, the din that we just said, if you're moisif in the mitzvah itself, you're over Baal Tosef. But let's say you add on your own mitzvahs that have no shaykhs to the Torah, right? That you made up your own mitzvahs. So as Ramban, the Torah is teaching you over there also, in the din of the klali taryag mitzvahs, you're also over Baal Tosef. You make up your own chefta of a mitzvah which has no shaykhis up to the taryag mitzvahs. There's oichet haste. There's also that's also called Baal Toisif. There's another machloikus over there, the Rambam and the Chinuch. The Chinuch says that the din of Baal Toisif is only by mitzvahs haseh. Mashenkin, the Rambam says it so too applies by the dinim of mitzvahs lois haseh. I wanted to also bring in over here a very important point that I think ties in here very well. If you look in the Rambam and Hilchos Deis in Perek Aleph, at the end of Perek Aleph, the Rambam goes into the dinim of a person's midos, and he says, which is famous Rambam, that all the midos of a person should supposed to be b'derech memutza. You're only supposed to be in the middle. Not supposed to be to one extreme or the other extreme, except the Rambam says when it comes to kas and gaiva, then a person is mechuyev to go all the way to the other side of the spectrum and not have any kas and any gaiva in normal cases, obviously, unless it's called for by the Torah that you should. But normally not. But you see a very important point. The Rambam's learning, and the Rambam says, what is the derech, why the meat should be in the middle? Zu derech Hashem, as it says, v'halachtu b'derach. That if you're going in the ways of Hashem, and the midas of Hashem, and you want to be a B'Tselem Elikim, like the Talmud Devorah says, and the Nefesh HaChaim, and the Ramchal, they all have a little bit different pshatim in that, but the way that Talmud Devorah learns it up, that a person has to have, even though the Velach V'Drachav means that he's supposed to do the Pu'ulos, that Hashem is Mahu Chan Afator Chan, or Mahu Racham Afator Racham, but that comes only through the Midos. The Pu'ulos come through the Midas. That the person's midas have to be b'derech Hashem, that you have to work on your midas, that all those things have to be balach b'dracha meil when it comes to the pu'ulas of the actions that will come out. But you see clearly that the Rambam says that the derech Hashem is derech mamutza, right? That however you want to explain that, which we're not going to get into now, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mahalach and these things is also derech mamutza. But a person has to realize, just like we saw, it shouldn't be about Tosef in these enemies. He has to realize that Kadosh Baruch Hu wants that you should do things in a balanced way. If a person goes too far to either side, then it's misplaced a lot of times. If he doesn't have any rachmanas, obviously, and if he has too much, sometimes it's also, you see in the Svarim, it could be achzarias. And if he has too, you have to know that you see a person has to always be in a balance in a normal way, or else it becomes misplaced, and then it's also a problem. So a person has to be very careful that you see this whole inyan about Toisiv, it comes into Midas too. A person has to make sure that he works on himself, that everything should be in the middle. So that's where it becomes a balance, unless it's called for, obviously, in certain cases, that we need to go to extremes when it comes to certain times, so that's only b'harashah. But avada, when it's a normal case, derech mamutza is the way to go, as we see in the Rambam. And that's the whole limit over here, that you shouldn't go overboard in anything. You have to have a balance. A good in Shabbos.